Welcome from Advanced. Today we're going to talk about the Spectrum 12P upright vacuum cleaner, use and maintenance of this particular unit. Any upright vacuum cleaner, it's important to maintain the filter systems so that we can ensure the performance of the vacuum cleaner. And so we're going to show you where those filters are and how you go about replacing them. First of all, on the back of the machine, you notice a cord release here, which gives me access to the back panel. The most important thing with upright vacuum cleaners is to make sure you maintain the filter systems. The Spectrum 12P has three main filters. One is the filter bag, paper bag that's trapping the debris. There's a pre-motor filter and an exhaust filter. I'll show you how to get access to those three filter systems now. To get access to the paper bag, pull up on this back tab on the rear plate. Using your finger, you can pull down on the left side of the bag tab and simply slide it out. This again is your filter bag. There is also a pre-motor filter. This filter is accessed by sliding out the cartridge assembly, and this filter can be replaced by pulling up on this tab. You'll notice on this filter assembly it says the electrostatic microfilter must be replaced every 5 bags. When you get a set of bags, within that bag set there'll be 2 of these filter assemblies as well as 10 bags. It's recommended that after you open that first set of bags, replace this filter assembly, and then when you get halfway through the bags, use the other filter assembly. That way you know you're always keeping up with proper filter replacement. Finally, the last filter is the exhaust filter, which is accessed on the front of the machine by pushing down on this tab, and this is a HEPA filter. Now this is a used machine, so if you take a look, you'll find this on your own unit. You're going to notice some black dust on here. That's carbon dust that's emitted from the vacuum motor. That's why it's important that we always have an exhaust filter on this machine when we're operating it. These filters, according to the manual, should be replaced every 6 to 12 months depending on the amount of debris that you have in your facility. To put this filter back in, there isn't an orientation for up or down. We just want to make sure that it's properly seated. Place the lower tab in and press it until you hear the audible click. Going back to the back side of the machine again, I showed you how you can replace this pre-motor filter. For the bag replacement, those can be replaced by sliding the cardboard tab in the channel of the bag holder, keeping the paper portion of the bag underneath. And then you'll push up, make sure the bag is in. You'll hear a click, and then you're able to replace the back plate of the vacuum, again by pulling up on the tab. You'll hear an audible click showing you that it's in place. Often I'm asked how full we should fill our filter bag before we need to have it replaced. And the answer to that really depends on the type of debris that we're picking up. In other words, under most circumstances, normal debris situations, 2/3 is about the maximum that you want to fill this debris bag. Again, remembering that for a vacuum cleaner to work, this filter bag has to pass air through it. As that bag fills up with debris, it does start to restrict the airflow and will affect the performance of the vacuum cleaner. However, when you're utilizing it in areas where you're picking up a finer debris, such as rock salt dust or construction dust, that fine particulate will have a tendency to clog the lining of the bag quicker, therefore restricting the airflow, and you may not be able to fill the bag to that 2/3 level. Another thing is, every time you use this vacuum, it's critical that you check the vacuum bag prior to use. The number one issue we have with upright vacuum cleaners is the vacuum bags fill. The operators don't identify that fill port, continue to use it, which then restricts the airflow, which ultimately leads to a clog, which we'll go into later on how to address those. Now this machine does have a storage for an additional bag, so there's no reason that you should ever be running this vacuum without a proper bag assembly. When you replace this one, make sure that you replace it with a clean bag so the next operator has that for their use. Okay. Now we want to talk about the brush roll. On the Spectrum 12P, the brush roll is easily removed by depressing down on this black tab and rotating it to the back of the machine as indicated by the two symbols on the unit. Tilt this back so we get a little leverage. And you can slide the brush roll out. When you inspect the brush roll, what we're looking for is hair and fibers that may get wrapped around the brush roll itself. We also want to check the bearing block end of the unit for any type of debris. You can see we've got a little bit of dust and buildup in on this machine here. We want to clear that out so that it continues to run smoothly. And then lastly, inside the machine here on this end of the bearing block, we want to make sure that there's no hair or lint on there. If you do have buildup on here, we want to make sure we remove that. If there's a significant amount of buildup, sometimes taking just a straight edge screwdriver or something to break that loose helps to make it a little easier to remove the debris. But it's important to keep that free on the brush roll so that we don't have excessive wear on the machine. To put the brush roll back in, you'll notice that we have an arrow-shaped tab on one end of the roll, and that corresponds to the arrow-shaped tab on the bearing block. So I slide this in, matching up that end of the block. Coming down on the machine and then depressing the tab forward. As you noticed, I had a little bit of difficulty in the beginning removing this tab backwards, and you may experience that on your machine. If you do, you can use a flathead screwdriver and put the screwdriver in the front part of that tab to press down, and that just simply helps to relieve the pressure on this locking clip for a little more easier removal. Now we want to talk about the brush height adjustment feature of the Spectrum 12P. The brush roll is adjusted by turning the knob on the front panel of the lower housing to the right to raise the brush and the left to lower the brush. To determine proper brush height adjustment, lower commercial grade carpets start with the position of this tab in one of the lower settings. For a medium grade carpet, somewhere in the middle, and if you have a higher nap or pile carpet, we want to be on the higher end. You can tell proper brush height adjustment if you have excessive pull of the machine. Then what that is indicating is that the brush is making too much contact with the carpet and should be raised slightly. Now this is a single motor upright vacuum cleaner, so it's important to note that true brush height adjustment won't make any change until I actually have the lower housing dropped. So now when I lower this tab, you can see how that raises and lowers this guide wheel, and that guide wheel is what determines the brush contact with the carpet. So in order to properly set this, have the machine tilted back in the operator position, and then you can make your adjustment up or down for brush. All right, next we want to talk about how to alleviate any clogs that you may have with your vacuum. The Spectrum 12P has what some refer to as a bagful indicator light. Actually what it is an airflow restricted light. It's located on the top of the machine. I can simply show you that by restricting the airflow to the vacuum. You get a bright red light. What that's telling you is somewhere within the vacuum system we have a restriction of airflow. So again, going back to what we referred to earlier, the first thing you would want to do is to check the filter bag and make sure that the filter bag is not full, or again, if it has fine talc or debris in there, that this is the cause of the restriction. The other thing we would want to check again is our pre-filter to make sure that there is no clogging or that that filter needs to be replaced. We're assuming under this situation that both these bags are in good working, or that both of these filters are in good working order. So now we may have an obstruction somewhere in the hose assembly. The Spectrum vacuum is equipped with what we call compartmentalized airflow. Basically what that means is you have easy access anywhere on this machine to be able to identify a clog. So assuming that the bag and the filter are clear, I can remove the hose here. I can visually inspect down the length of the hose to see if there's an obstruction. If there is an obstruction, take a long straight object such as a coat hanger, a dowel rod of some sort, and you can clear that obstruction out, and that should eliminate that airflow restriction light. If that hose assembly is clear, and you still have that obstruction, then the next logical place to look would be in the wand itself. Again, easily removed, and you can check that for any obstruction. If the obstruction is not identified in either the wand or the hose assembly itself, then it may be in the portion of the hose that feeds down to the brush assembly. On the Spectrum, this hose can be removed by first taking off the crevice tool, and with your finger just simply pulling back, releasing this tab. You now have, in essence, a straight shot for where the airflow comes in to the vacuum cleaner. So again, I could take a hacksaw blade, a pencil, or something and push that debris out. If I needed to at this point, again, I could remove my brush roll, clear that obstruction, replace the brush, stand the machine back upright, replace this hose assembly again by placing the tab between the slot, replacing my crevice tool, place the wand back in the holster, put the vacuum hose back on top, and then remove your obstruction. Now we want to talk about the handle assembly on the Spectrum vacuum. Not so critical for the maintenance of the machine, but it does have a feature that I think is important that you recognize, not only for your convenience as you're operating the machine, but also for the durability of this vacuum cord. First of all, you may or may not be aware, but the Spectrum does have a two-position handle. That handle position is adjusted by depressing this front tab, pushing down on it, and you'll lock in. So you have a low and a high. So depending on the height of the operator and the area you're cleaning in, you have the ability to adjust that handle assembly. But importantly, there is a cable strain relief mechanism on this machine, and it's a pretty simple design. What we're trying to do is avoid any torque to this lower vac or cord housing. And the way I do that is every time I use the machine, I want to identify that the cord is put through this circular channel and up over the top of this cord hanger. And by doing that, what I do is I eliminate any strain on the cord from this electrical component. So when you get out to use the machine, just identify that this cord is wrapped around the cord wrap through that channel, and that'll help protect your cords.